The sun rose over the green hills of New Hope, a small town in the heart of the Midwest, where time seemed to move more slowly. The cobblestone streets and colorful houses painted a typical picture of rural America, where everyone knew each other. By name and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. Samuel Thompson, a man with calloused hands and a deep gaze, was the exception to the rule in this place. At 60 years old, he preferred the company of the animals on his small farm to that of the local residents. His property, Thompson's Acres, was located a few miles from the town center, on fertile land that had recently become the target of envy, especially after the announcement of a luxury resort being built nearby. In the town square, Joe's Diner was the epicenter of local gossip. Mrs. Clara, the owner of the town's only pharmacy, was having breakfast while chatting animatedly with other ladies. "Did you see Samuel this morning? That man has the strangest ideas," she commented, adjusting her glasses on her wrinkled face. "What happened now?" asked Mrs. Evelyn, always eager for news. "He was taking that old nag of his to Dr. Daniel's clinic. Can you imagine spending money on an animal that's already on its last legs?" exclaimed Clara, shaking her head in disapproval. Dr. Daniel Harris was the only veterinarian in the area, a young man who had recently graduated and decided to return to his hometown to help the community. Although respected for his knowledge, many thought he was too idealistic, especially when it came to the cases he took on. That morning, Samuel had arrived at the veterinary clinic with Thunder, his faithful horse who had been by his side for nearly 15 years. The animal, once strong and imposing, could barely walk now, dragging itself with difficulty beside its owner. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson," greeted Daniel, observing the animal's weakened state. "What happened to Thunder?" "I'm not sure, Doc," replied Samuel, his voice grave and his expression worried. "It started 2 weeks ago. He lost his appetite and he's been getting weaker every day. Yesterday morning I found him lying in the stable and he could hardly get up." As Daniel examined the horse, a small group of curious onlookers gathered outside the clinic. Among them was Charles Edwards, known as Charlie, the most influential businessman in town. Owner of the largest supermarket chain in the region and president of the Chamber of Commerce, he watched the scene with poorly concealed interest. "There goes the crazy old man wasting what little he has on that useless horse," Charlie commented to Roger Simmons, his right-hand man and a local councilman. "I've already offered him good money for his farm, but the stubborn old fool prefers to live in that misery." What no one knew was that behind Samuel's seemingly irrational behavior lay a cunning that few could imagine. While the mocking glances followed him, he remained steadfast, guided by a suspicion that grew stronger every day. At the clinic, Dr. Daniel performed a series of preliminary tests on Thunder. The young veterinarian frowned as he noticed symptoms that didn't correspond to a natural illness. "Mr. Thompson, I need to run more detailed tests. I'll take some blood samples and analyze the feed he's been eating. Did you bring it as I asked?" Samuel nodded, handing over a bag of the animal's feed. His eyes met the veterinarian's, and a silent understanding seemed to pass between them. Meanwhile, in town, rumors about Samuel's madness were spreading. At Mrs. Marlene's beauty salon, the clients discussed the matter with fervor. "They say he talks to the animals like they're people," commented Susan, the manicurist. "My husband worked on his farm for a while and told me the old man treats that horse better than some people treat their kids." Emily Carter, a teacher at the local school and one of the few people who truly knew Samuel, defended him. "Mr. Thompson has a big heart. That horse is the only family he has left since his wife passed away. If I were you, I wouldn't judge without knowing the whole story." By evening, Dr. Daniel called Samuel back to the clinic. The serious look on the veterinarian's face confirmed what the farmer had already suspected. "Mr. Thompson, I found traces of a toxic substance in Thunder's blood. Someone has been poisoning your horse slowly." The farmer nodded, showing no surprise. "I knew it, Doc. Over the past few months, I've noticed signs that someone's been entering my property when I'm not around. Different footprints, gates I leave closed but find open." "But why would anyone do that?" asked Daniel, genuinely perplexed. Samuel looked out the window, watching the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "Doc, my land is the only piece missing to complete the resort project. Without it, they can't meet the minimum area required by the town council. They've offered me a lot of money, but that farm is my life, my history, and now they're trying to force me to sell." The young veterinarian felt a shiver run down his spine. The quiet town he knew hid dark interests and people willing to do anything to get what they wanted. "We'll treat Thunder, Mr. Thompson, and in the meantime we need to find out who's behind all this." The farmer agreed, his determination stronger than ever. As he walked back home, with the starry sky as his witness, Samuel knew that a bigger battle was just beginning. What he didn't yet realize was that the real enemy was closer than he suspected, watching his every move and preparing the next step in this dangerous game. The news about the poisoning of Samuel's horse spread quickly through New Hope. What had once been a subject of mockery, now sparked murmurs of shock and conspiracy theories in every corner of town. At the local market, among stalls of cheese and homemade sweets, the residents discussed the case with growing interest. "I always thought it was strange how suddenly everyone wanted Samuel's farm," commented Mr. Harold, the oldest vendor in town, as he arranged his fruits. "That land is good, but it was never this coveted until they announced that resort." Lydia Peterson, who ran the local inn, approached with a worried look. "Do you really think someone would poison an animal just to pressure the owner into selling? That's too cruel." "Big money can turn people's heads, my dear," replied Harold, with the wisdom of his 80 years. Meanwhile, at Thompson's Acres, Samuel began his own investigation. With cautious steps, he walked every corner of his property, noticing details that might have gone unnoticed before. In the stable, where Thunder was recovering under intensive care, he found boot prints that weren't his, pressed into the damp earth near the animal's feeding trough. Following those clues, the farmer arrived at a fence at the back of his property. A small section was partially broken, creating a discreet passage between his farm and the neighboring property, which belonged to Edwards Enterprises, Charlie's company. "So this is how he gets in," Samuel murmured to himself, carefully examining the damaged fence. That same evening, an unexpected visitor arrived at the farm. Emily Carter knocked on Samuel's door, bringing not only the traditional basket of sweets she often prepared, but also valuable information. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry to show up unannounced," she said, nervously tucking a curl behind her ear. "But I overheard something at school today that I thought you should know." Sitting on the simple porch, with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee in the air, Emily recounted that she had overheard a conversation between Councilman Roger Simmons and Charlie Edwards after a school board meeting. They were talking about speeding up some process, that they couldn't wait any longer. Charlie said something like, "If the old man won't sell willingly, he'll sell unwillingly," and mentioned a deadline with foreign investors that's running out. Samuel listened in silence, his wrinkled face calm but his eyes revealing the storm within. "Thank you, Emily. You've always been a good girl, even back when you were just a student in that little country school." The teacher smiled warmly. "You were the first person who believed I could be more than just a farm girl. I'll never forget the afternoons you lent me books and told me about the world beyond here." Before the conversation could continue, a noise from the stable caught their attention. When they arrived, they found Dr. Daniel, who had come to check on Thunder. "Sorry for intruding, Mr. Thompson. The door was open, and I thought it best to come straight in," explained the veterinarian, putting some medications back in his bag. "I brought a more specific treatment, now that we've identified the exact type of toxin." Emily greeted Daniel, and an exchange of glances between the two didn't escape Samuel's notice. The farmer realized that this could be the beginning of an alliance he desperately needed. "Doc, Emily just brought me some important information. I think it's time we talked about what's really going on in this town." The three sat in the simple living room of the main house, where Samuel revealed his suspicions and what he had discovered so far. Dr. Daniel, in turn, shared that other animals from neighboring farms were also showing strange symptoms, though less severe than Thunder's. "All the affected properties are the ones Edwards Enterprises is interested in buying," concluded the veterinarian, connecting the dots. "But we need concrete evidence," Emily pointed out. "Accusations against the most powerful man in town could backfire if we don't have proof." Samuel stood up slowly and walked to an old wooden chest in the corner of the room. From it, he pulled out a dusty box containing various yellow documents. "Maybe this will help," he said, placing the box on the table. "These are records from when I worked as an accountant at the town hall before I dedicated myself full-time to the farm. There are documents about all the land transactions in the area over the last 30 years. Emily and Daniel looked at Samuel in surprise. This was a side of the crazy old man that no one in town knew about. "You were an accountant?" asked Daniel, incredulous. "For 15 years. Until I realized the numbers were starting to hide. Lies I didn't want to help cover anymore," replied the farmer with a different gleam in his eye. The three spent the next few hours examining the documents. Around midnight, Emily exclaimed, "Look at this! All these properties that are now part of the resort complex originally belonged to small farmers, and they were all sold after facing mysterious problems, unexplained pests, water contamination, sick animals. Exactly what's happening now," murmured Daniel. "But the most interesting part," continued Emily, "is that before ending up in Edwards Enterprises' hands, they all passed through a company called Nova Agribusiness, which then resold them at a huge profit." Samuel frowned. "Nova, that name sounds familiar." After some more digging, they discovered that Nova Agribusiness was registered under the name Paul Nova, a name unknown to everyone. However, when they checked the company's address, they found a surprise. "This is the address of Roger Simmons' vacation home," exclaimed Daniel. "My aunt cleans there occasionally." The final piece of the puzzle was falling into place. It wasn't just Charlie Edwards orchestrating the pressure on the farmers, but a partnership between him and Roger Simmons, who used a shell company to mediate the deals and hide the true scheme. "We need to take this information to the proper authorities," said Emily, determined. "It won't be that simple," Samuel warned. "Roger has connections with the local sheriff. We need more evidence, something that directly incriminates them." At that moment, a noise from outside the house interrupted their conversation. Someone was approaching the farm in the dead of night. The three exchanged silent glances. Samuel quickly turned off the living room light, while Daniel peeked discreetly through a crack in the window. "It's Jack Collins," whispered the veterinarian, recognizing Charlie's foreman, "and he's not alone." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The night that had started as a simple visit of solidarity had turned into something much more dangerous. Now cornered on the farm and surrounded by those who surely had no good intentions, the three understood that the game had changed drastically. The heavy footsteps echoed in the silent night as Jack Collins and his two accomplices searched the surroundings of Thompson's Acres. Inside the main house, Samuel, Emily, and Daniel remained still, protected only by the darkness and silence. "They're looking for something," whispered Daniel, watching the intruder's movements through the crack in the window. "Or someone," added Samuel, with the calm of someone who had been expecting this moment. "They probably found out we're investigating." Emily, her heart racing, had a sudden idea. She grabbed her phone and, with trembling fingers, began recording the invasion. This could be the concrete proof they needed to expose Charlie and Roger's scheme. "We need a plan," she murmured, "if they find us with these documents." Before she could finish, a noise from the stable interrupted the tension. Thunder, though weakened, neighed loudly, as if trying to warn his owner of the imminent danger. "Damn it, there's a horse in the stable!" exclaimed one of the men outside. "I thought we'd already taken care of it." "The old man must be hiding around here. Let's check," replied Jack, heading toward the stable. Samuel felt his blood boil. He wouldn't let them hurt Thunder again. In a quick movement, he grabbed an old shotgun he kept above the fireplace, a family heirloom he had never used but kept loaded for precaution. "Mr. Thompson, don't!" whispered Emily, grabbing his arm. "This will only make things worse." "I have a better idea," interjected Daniel, grabbing his phone. "I'll call Mrs. Teresa, the retired judge who lives on the neighboring farm. She still has a lot of influence in the regional court and hates Charlie Edwards ever since he tried to force her to sell her land." While Daniel made the call, quickly explaining the situation, the intruders moved closer to the main house. Emily continued recording, clearly capturing the men's faces in the moonlight. "We need to buy time," said Samuel. "I'll distract them, while you two escape through the back with the documents." Before they could protest, The farmer had already opened the back door, allowing Emily and Daniel to escape toward the small woods that separated the farm from the main road. With a deep breath, the old man adjusted his hat and stepped out the front door, facing the intruders with the dignity of someone who had nothing to fear. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he asked loudly, startling the three men now standing in the yard. "Mr. Thompson," exclaimed Jack, trying to mask his nervousness. "We were passing by and saw lights on your property. With all the reports of thefts in the area, we thought we'd check if everything was okay." The farmer allowed himself an ironic smile. "What an interesting coincidence, Jack. Just you being so concerned about my well-being after poisoning my horse." Jack's expression hardened instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I think we'd better leave. It's late." "Too late for you," replied Samuel, noticing the lights of several cars approaching on the dirt road. In less than 15 minutes, Thompson's Acres was filled with police cars. Mrs. Teresa had kept her promise, bringing not only the local police, but also 2 state investigators who were in town looking into corruption allegations. Under the glare of the patrol car lights, Emily and Daniel returned with the incriminating documents. The teacher handed her phone to Officer Laura Collins, a middle-aged woman known for her unwavering integrity, who watched the recordings with a stern expression. "These men are under arrest for trespassing," declared the officer, as her deputies handcuffed Jack and his accomplices. "And as for these allegations of sabotage and poisoning, we'll investigate thoroughly." "We have more evidence," interjected Daniel, presenting the documents they had found. "There's a systematic pressure scheme against the farmers in the area, orchestrated by businessman Charles Edwards and Councilman Roger Simmons." In the hours that followed, the small farm became the epicenter of a police operation that would shake the foundations of New Hope. Other farmers in the area, hearing about the events, began coming forward with their own stories of intimidation and sabotage. The next morning, the residents of New Hope woke up to the news of the arrest of Charlie Edwards and Roger Simmons. The local newspaper's front page read, "Corruption and Intimidation Scheme Exposed. Businessmen and councilmen arrested for sabotage and influence peddling." A week later, the case had gained national attention. Journalists from major outlets crowded the town square, interviewing residents and digging for details about the scandal. Thompson's Acres, once a subject of mockery, now symbolized resistance and courage. In the rebuilt stable, Thunder was gradually recovering under the attentive care of Dr. Daniel, who had started visiting the farm daily, not just as a veterinarian but as a friend. Emily had also become a constant presence, dividing her time between the school and long conversations with Samuel on the porch. On a particularly pleasant autumn afternoon, as the three shared coffee on the porch, Mr. Harold arrived with a group of residents. They carried baskets of food, tools, and building materials. "We came to help rebuild what was damaged, Mr. Thompson," explained the old vendor, "and also to apologize for doubting you for so long." The farmer, moved, simply nodded. Those same people who had once called him the crazy old man now treated him with respect and admiration. The irony wasn't lost on him. The investigations continued, revealing that Charlie and Roger's scheme was even bigger than they had imagined. Several politicians and businessmen in the region were involved in the real estate speculation aimed at turning productive farmland into luxury resorts, disregarding environmental and social laws. At an event organized by the Farmers Association, Samuel was invited to speak. The man who had always avoided crowds found himself facing hundreds of people, all attentive to his words. "I'm not a hero, and I never wanted to be," he began, his voice choked with emotion. "I'm just a man who loves his land and his history. What we did, Emily, Dr. Daniel, and I, was simply not bow to greed. And that's a lesson we need to remember every day. The truth, no matter how hard they try to bury it, always finds a way to come out." The audience erupted into emotional applause. Among them, Mrs. Teresa smiled proudly. She had been the one to encourage the creation of the association years ago, foreseeing that one day the small farmers would need to unite against greater interests. In the months that followed, New Hope underwent profound changes. With the fall of the corrupt scheme, new leaders emerged. Emily ran for mayor with a platform focused on sustainable family farming and rural education. Daniel expanded his veterinary clinic, creating a free care program for animals belonging to small farmers. As for Samuel, he finally accepted the persistent requests of the younger generation to share his knowledge. On Saturday afternoons, Thompson's Acres opened its doors to children and teenagers from the area who learned about traditional farming, respect for nature, and the importance of fighting for what is right. Thunder, fully recovered, grazed peacefully in the green fields, sometimes accompanied by young colts who now also roamed the farm. The old horse had become something of a local celebrity, and many visitors brought carrots and apples as gifts for the animal whose resilience had inspired an entire community. One particular evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Samuel sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, watching Emily and Daniel walk hand in hand among the rows of corn. A faint smile played on his wrinkled lips. Life had taught him that sometimes those who mock are the first to be surprised when the truth turns the tables. Now surrounded by true friends and with his land safe, the old farmer finally felt he had won his most important battle. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Samuel and his faithful horse Thunder has touched your hearts. To continue this journey of emotions, we've prepared a special playlist of equally captivating stories. You can find it by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, resilience, and justice, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Every day we bring you unique stories that explore the complexities of life in rural America. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to your comments. The story of Samuel Thompson and Thunder became a legend in New Hope, a tale passed down through generations as a reminder of the power of standing up for what is right. The town, once divided by greed and corruption, found new unity in the aftermath of the scandal. Farmers who had once been pitted against one another now worked together, sharing resources and knowledge to ensure that no one could ever exploit them again. Emily's campaign for mayor gained momentum, fueled by the trust and admiration of the townspeople. Her platform, centered on sustainable farming practices and improving rural education, resonated deeply with a community eager for change. She often visited Thompson's Acres, not just as a friend, but as a leader seeking Samuel's wisdom. The old farmer, though reluctant at first, became one of her most trusted advisors, his insights into the land and its people proving invaluable. Daniel's veterinary clinic flourished, becoming a hub of activity for both animals and their owners. His free care program for small farmers' animals was a lifeline for many, and his dedication earned him the respect of the entire community. He and Emily grew closer, their shared commitment to New Hope strengthening their bond. It wasn't long before the town began to whisper about a possible wedding, though the couple remained focused on their work. As for Samuel, he found a new sense of purpose in mentoring the younger generation. The Saturday afternoon sessions at Thompson's Acres became a beloved tradition, with children and teenagers eagerly learning about the land, its history, and the importance of stewardship. Samuel's stories of the past, his battles against injustice, and his unwavering love for Thunder inspired them to dream of a better future. Thunder, now a symbol of resilience, enjoyed his days in the fields, often surrounded by admirers. The old horse seemed to sense his newfound role, carrying himself with a quiet dignity that endeared him to everyone who met him. Samuel often joked that Thunder had become the true mayor of New Hope, a sentiment that brought laughter and joy to the town. The legacy of Samuel's fight against corruption extended far beyond New Hope. News of the scandal and its resolution reached neighboring towns, inspiring others to stand up against exploitation and greed. The Farmers Association grew in strength and numbers, becoming a powerful voice for rural communities across the region. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves turned golden and the air grew cool, the town gathered in the square to celebrate. The first anniversary of the scandal's resolution. A plaque was unveiled, honoring Samuel, Emily, and Daniel for their courage and dedication. Samuel, ever humble, insisted that the real heroes were the people of New Hope, who had come together to reclaim their town. As the festivities continued, Samuel stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, watching the children play and the adults laugh and talk. Thunder stood beside him, nuzzling his shoulder. The old farmer patted his horse's neck, a deep sense of peace settling over him. "We did it, old friend," Samuel murmured. "We showed them what's possible when people stand together." Thunder whinnied softly as if in agreement, and the two stood side by side, a testament to the enduring power of courage, love, and community. Dear listeners, we hope this story has reminded you of the strength that lies in unity and the importance of fighting for what is right. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like on the video. Every day we bring you stories that celebrate the resilience and spirit of rural America. Stay tuned for more inspiring tales, and as always, we look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments below.